All right, and we are live. Welcome back with Murphy Mac to another episode of the Fitness Beginner Podcast, where we help you get started on your fitness journey. What is going on, everybody? We have a cool episode for y'all today. We have a special guest joining us for the podcast, and I'm going to bring him onto the screen now. We have Mr. Andreas. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you
Andreas
did. You did.
Ayesta.
Uh-huh.
Is
You
that
got it right.
okay? So I'm gonna let him introduce himself. I'm not gonna steal his thunder, and then we'll get right into the interview.
Awesome. Let me get myself situated here to make sure I'm on camera. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, dude. First off, thank you. And yeah, just to kind of give you guys a little bit more background on who I am. I'm a registered dietitian and performance coach. Been doing this for about 12 years, and I guess the short of it is I'm an immigrant from originally from Venezuela. I came here in 2009, pursuing the American dream, getting my schooling done. So I wanted to be a doctor originally. That didn't really happen or pan out. I didn't get into med school the way I wanted to. So back then there was an opportunity for me to be able to enter into this like nutrition school to be able to jump into med school in an easier way. I never did. I never looked back. I realized I wanted to prevent disease rather than treat it. So that kind of led me into the path of pursuing nutrition, which I realized at that point, I didn't really even know that it was a career. I also wanted to work with I wanted to work with athletes, and my big dream was to work with professional athletes. So that's what I set my mind to do. And I came to the US. I finished my degree here. I went to Texas to do a lot of my clinical work. Dietitians, and we can talk a little bit about this, but registered dietitians are essentially equipped with the knowledge and the academic background and also the clinical background to be able to provide nutrition advice to people. So I did all that. And then I still had not pursued the goal of like working with pro athletes. So I applied randomly to a job here in Florida in Bradenton. I got it. I was a nutrition coach in a performance facility called IMG Academy. And I packed my bags from Houston, where I was living at the time, and I ended up here well, not here, but in Bradenton, Florida, working with youth athletes. And long story short, eventually ended up working with NFL players and Major League Baseball players. So you could say that I kind of fulfilled my dream of working with athletes at all caliber and helping them improve their performance. And that basically led to me starting this company, which is Planos Nutrition, which is a platform where I educate and coach people on how to achieve top level performance like athletes do, but they're average individuals who work full-time jobs and they have their parents, their moms and dads, and they just really want to lose weight, improve their body composition, get fit, get lean. And we do it in a way that is evidence-based and that it doesn't necessarily go with a lot of the fats and a lot of the things that you see out there, and just to make sure that it's something that makes sense, that it's simplified. And yeah, that's kind of like a little bit about me and in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, I like how you said. I realized I wanted to prevent the issues instead of treating issues. I like that was kind of a. I like how you said that. That's a good point.
Well, it's
Point
funny
there.
because that was actually my cousin that said that to me whenever she's the one that kind of brought it up. She's like, well, like, cuz, wait, why don't you just, I mean, if you think about it, doctors kind of treat disease, but like, well, if you eat right and you do all the right things as far as nutrition, you potentially could prevent it, right? And this is like, I was 19 years old and it registered, and ever since then I have kept that, and I'm hoping, and I'm a living proof of that. That's what I do in my life. I want to live longer, I don't want to get sick, and I instill the same things in my family.
Yeah, I like that philosophy. I'm kind of doing the same thing on my end, but mine's more fitness workout related, and yours is more nutrition
Yeah.
related. So
Hmm.
I like preventing it instead of treating it. I like that. I'm
Yeah.
about to use that myself.
Yeah, for sure, man.
You said you worked at IMG Academy. I'm interested in that because I think everybody at this point has heard of IMG Academy. I'm not that old, so it's been
Really?
around for a while. Well, I'm 26, so I've been out of high school for a while, but I know IMG has been like a very big thing for a while, and it's
Yeah.
pretty cool what they're doing. I actually just watched. I don't know if you know Will Tennyson, but he just did a video at the school, kind of showing all the things that they do with their athletes, and I think it's pretty cool. So, what did you do at IMG?
So yeah, I was a sports nutrition coach, and my time at IMG, I did work with Gatorade and directly also with IMG for about a year or two. My job and my role working with initially youth athletes. So we were teaching kids from anywhere from 8 until 16, 17 how to fuel their bodies properly. It's a key age to be able to do that. Is when they care the least, but yet it's an area that is developmentally so important for athletes. And then it was cool because when I was working there, that's the same place where a lot of like big tennis players came out of, by the way. Like, Andre Agassi trained there, like the Williams sisters trained there because there's a guy in there that started that facility. It was originally called Voltieri Academy, started by Nick Bollettieri, and that was specifically just for tennis. And that's where a lot of big names came from because he was their coach. And that eventually got bought out by this big giant IMG, and they turned it into a multi-sport facility. And now it's like a resort, dude. Like even like when I left, like they had just built like an entire dorm for kids. Now, granted, this is a pretty expensive school. It's a boarding school essentially, but then they have all different programs. So they had at the time they had an NFL Combine program. They had a Gatorade Sports Science facility there in there too. So they did a lot of research. So it was a pretty cool experience because I was working with youth and kids. And then, like, next thing you know, I was walking by some big celebrity athlete that was just training in there for their off season. A lot of Olympic athletes train there. A lot of Olympians, like gold medalists, actually were able to train there because they had a lot of speed coaches and stuff. So that set the foundation for my experience working with athletes at all caliber and understood really what it entails to fuel the body accordingly for optimal performance. So yeah, it was unique. It was really interesting. It was a great, exciting time in my life. And eventually I took that experience to bring it into a lot of the things that I do now.
So I know you mentioned you work with athletes. What is your biggest clientele? Who do you work with the most now?
So now I like to call them high performers. So these are people that are just, people like in a way you and I, that you want to show up the best that you can every day. Usually those are falling in the category are business professionals, people that, work full-time jobs. They try to juggle family and all those different things like that, but they want to feel and look good. They don't want to just be successful in business. They want to be able to also look the part. And I call that a high performer, high achiever because of the fact that they're really trying to master all areas of their life, including but not limited to just fitness and health, business, family, career, spirituality, and faith. And that's who I work the most. But it's interesting because for me, my work initially started in working with like athletes, and I took a lot of the things that I learned from that. And understanding that a lot of times like athletes train just like or like the mindset of athletes is just like trying to kind of like show up the best that they can to the arena, to the court, and things like that. So for me it's like, well, we're trying to kind of like do the same thing but on a daily basis. But our arena or like our court is essentially just working daily with people, or just showing out for our kids or showing out for our family. So that's kind of what led to that, because it's like a trendy thing to do is for religious purposes. So what do I think about fasting? I think fasting is a dietary strategy to help you manage your calorie intake and specific windows of time. It does not do anything more than, again, restricting the times in which you consume food, which will help you probably control your calories. In research, it's almost been shown for the most part there is a little bit of I guess like some of the research shows that it can help more than just a calorie restricted state or a calorie deficit to lose a little bit more weight. But I think in reality, it's not really worth just doing fasting just simply because it's a cool thing that a lot of times people or that a lot of people are doing. So it is essentially a way to again control your calories. And the way I think about it or the way I explain it is the following. Well, let's say that your typical day looks like you stop by Starbucks and you get a pastry and some coffee. And then maybe you grab like, I don't know, like a snack or something like that. And before like 10 o'clock, and then the coffee was something that had milk and all the different things like that. And before 11 o'clock, you already had 600 calories. And then like at nighttime, like after 9 o'clock, you go back to the kitchen and you grab a small thing here and there and you grab a bite and you're watching TV and grabbing popcorn, all those different things like that. outside of the typical intermittent fasting windows, what happens is like you're consuming 1,000 calories. So when you create a rule set where you say, I'm only gonna eat between 9, or I'm only gonna eat between 1 o'clock and 9 p.m., and you cut it off, all you're doing is you're cutting out a ton of the calories you're no longer consuming in those windows. You're forcing yourself to do that. You're consuming way less calories. This is why people typically tend to lose weight. And when people lose weight, also they have improvements in their lipid markers. They have improvements in their cholesterol, which is the kind of stuff that you tend to see in intermittent fasting research and studies. So, is it an adequate strategy for people to lose weight? Yes, if you understand how it works. I
Mhm.
personally like to do it whenever I want to manage my calories adequately. Today's Friday, so if I want to have pizza tonight, I'll make intermittent fast, and then not leading to tonight, but I'll just simply say, well, I'm gonna eat lunch, something lighter. I'm gonna eat something higher protein mid afternoon, so then I have a bigger budget to be able to allow myself to have, pizza without really restraint or guilt, and it doesn't necessarily affect me or affect any way my fitness journey, even if I'm trying to lose weight or increase muscle or reduce body fat. So that's the way I think about intermittent fasting.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Just it works because it limits how much you can eat because it limits the time you can eat. I agree. What about training? If you train in the morning but you're fasting, what do you think about fasted training? Is there a benefit to it? Is there a negative to it? What is your thought
If
process on
your
that?
calories are control, let me put you two examples. Let's say that you and I, let's say our goals is to get lean, right? And let's say I am going to do fasting and then you're not, right? You're still gonna eat breakfast and we're doing exactly the same thing. So let's say we're doing 30 minutes of cardio or exercising in the morning and then some weightlifting. And then the only difference is that you're going to eat your breakfast and I'm going to fast until 1 o'clock. Is there a difference in progress between us two? If the calories that we both consume are the same and the amount of protein that we consume is the same, we're probably going to have similar results, which means I'll just continue. Okay, there we go. So we're probably going to have similar results. And the reason why we will have similar results is because of the fact that we have the same exact amount of calories. So what this means is it doesn't matter whether you're fasted or not. If you're consuming more calories than what your body needs, you will gain fat or you will not lose fat. If you are consuming less calories, whether you're doing a hour cardio and eating breakfast right afterwards or eating something before, it's not going to make a difference. So what I like to always explain to people is you don't necessarily need to do fasted stuff. Now, some people like to do it because mentally it makes them feel good. I honestly feel lighter when I'm working out and I haven't had anything to eat yet. But that's the only reason because I feel better the way I do it. But it's not necessarily because I'm trying to increase body fat burning because it doesn't happen that way. Particularly, and sometimes it can backfire when you're just so hungry afterwards that you end up eating way too many calories because you were just simply trying to fast and your body used energy and you need to replenish that.
Yeah, so I mainly train fasted. Um, when I did a bodybuilding show last year, and my bodybuilding coach had me eating before, so I started doing that. I did that for a while, and I kept doing that after the show, and I liked it at first because I was training fasted, and when I would work out, I'd eat before and then work out. I could notice a little bit, like I felt a little bit stronger, felt like I had a little bit more energy. But then quickly after that, I went back to going to training fasted, and then I also have started running recently, and I hear people always say you need fuel before you run. Well, what I found is that I feel kind of I feel kind of sluggish when I eat right before I run. So I just started training fast and running too, and I do find that way. I mean, I guess it
Well,
depends
you
on the
can do
person.
that, and I think there's benefits to that. It's nuanced because it depends on so many different components in different areas. So let me walk you through why you feel sluggish. The reason you feel sluggish, especially people that eat before they train, work out, or especially doing endurance sports or endurance type of training like running, is because you have food goes into your stomach. You have to have blood diverted to your stomach so it can process the food that is coming in. And if you have like a slower digestive system, there's going to be less blood going to the muscles that really matter the most, or like the parts of your body that matter the most, which is muscle and different things like that. So that's what you feel that way. You feel like kind of like heavy. You feel like, you have like too much stuff on you. It's simply because of the fact of the way that your body's working in that moment. So that's one reason why this happens. Now, is it okay if you train fasted? 100%. You can totally train fasted. The only difference that I always tell people, or the thing that you need to be careful for with, is just to getting enough protein. Because training fasted and not getting enough protein can start to backfire your goals and your results, particularly if you're trying to maintain or gain muscle, which is something that happens in intermittent fasting people. They're not getting enough calories and at the same time not getting enough protein, and that leads to obviously muscles not growing or sometimes even being lost or muscle atrophy, which is something very real. So we try to ensure that if you're going to be training fasted, you're still prioritizing getting enough protein for the rest of the day, that you're not going to be doing any type of training.
Yeah, I typically try to eat right after a training session. But
Yeah.
I just thought it was weird how I didn't I didn't feel kind of sluggish when I did weight training, when I did my weightlifting, but when I did running, I did notice it.
Yeah, it's
It's
like when
very
you think
different
about
from
it, it's you have
training.
a higher
Oh yeah, I was
higher
just
heart rate.
curious about what you thought about training fast because I
Yeah,
actually probably prefer training interest, but you gotta do worse for you. So that's what I've come to that
yeah.
conclusion. I'm just gonna keep
Well,
doing
when
the
you
fastest
if you
unless
think
I have
about it,
adequate time to digest the food before workout. But I work out before I go to work in the morning. So I don't necessarily have a lot of time to sit there and digest food before I go to the gym.
yeah, it makes sense. And if you think about it, can you hear me?
Did I lose you?
No, I think hello. I think
You there?
yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me? It looks like it's working on my end.
Can you hear me?
Uh, yeah, I can hear you. Hello, hello, hello.
What the heck, dude?
Let's see.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
I apologize, man. I don't know what's going on. I'm not even connected to the Wi-Fi on my phone, and it's still cut out.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Cool. Yeah, look, like I was saying, like typically when you run, you have your heart rate goes up and it goes higher. So because of that reason, you tend to have, again, like that's where you feel a little bit slower. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of times that happens.
Yeah. So, change the subject. You mentioned your whole food to carnivore challenge diet thing that you're doing. I want to hear more about that. So, how did that become a thing, and what exactly are you doing for that?
Yeah. Have you heard about the carnivore diet?
Yeah, I know carnivore and whole food. I'm just curious as to what
Yeah.
are you going for?
Well, it's a big thing now. Everybody is
Mm-hmm.
like, you go on social media and like, if you type in carnivore on social media and now there's like a bunch of videos now you start like kind of seeing from people eating like everything from like sticks of butter to like, steak and eggs and cheese for breakfast, lunch and dinner and all that kind of stuff like that. Like people with the boards, shirtless stuff. So it's become like a big trend. So I went on YouTube and I did a video breaking down the science behind carnivore diets and whether it was something special or not. And I got some comments from because usually people within this world and realm of low carb carnivore, they're very aggressive about their approach and they're like, it's our way or no way. So they defend their dietary pattern. So somebody said, well, have you ever done it? Because if you've never done it, you don't know exactly what it feels like, so you cannot speak for it. I took that to heart and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I'm going to simply just do it to understand exactly what happens. So, why whole foods? The reason I'm doing whole foods, it's mostly because I believe that a lot of times the attributable benefits that people experience when they go carnivore are related to simply the fact that most people that do it go from eating a lot of stuff they should not be eating, a lot of processed food, a lot of like over like a crazy ton amount of calories, to now cutting down 80% of everything they were consuming before to only now eating meat. They're going to most likely eat less. Did I lose you? There you go.
Sorry, somebody's calling me on my phone.
So
Golly.
that then we have people that usually kind of transition into a carnivore diet or a carnivore thing. So at that point, like they're cutting out 80% of everything they consume, and because of that reason they are most likely eating less. They're cutting out their calories because that's obviously what they're losing weight. So I thought, well, if I go whole foods and I do only whole foods for 30 days, am I going to experience similar benefits? And if I then go on a carnivore diet for 30 days. So I just finished 30 days on whole foods, literally just 2 days ago. I lost like 8 pounds, even consuming over 2,000 calories a day. I feel leaner. I feel better. We just got our blood work results, which were kind of surprisingly not really a whole lot of differences in there. But anyways, I did that part of it. So now in a couple weeks, I'm going to transition into a full-blown carnivore diet, and I'm also going to test not only things like strength and everything, but I'm also going to be testing my lab work, my body composition, and everything else in between, so we can see what happens as a result of that. And that's really what this whole experiment is all about. There we go.
Sorry, my wife called me. This is a disaster. Now I'm on my phone. She called me right in the middle of it. Um, I'm sorry. This
Oh,
has got
good,
me
man.
all off track. I swear this has never happened before. Of course, my wife, I don't work, and then my wife keeps calling,
Oh, good,
and of
man.
course I don't answer, and she calls me right back. Um, so I didn't catch the end of the
Yeah, so
carnivore.
like I said, I'm doing this just to really try to test the hypothesis whether I like the benefits people get from carnivore diet are a result of people cutting out a lot of stuff that they shouldn't be eating, or if there's anything magic or beneficial about just doing a carnivore diet. And the best way to test it is like, well, you have to go whole foods first, which is what I did, and then I'm gonna transition into a carnivore diet.
So how long is your whole food period? How long are you doing that
It
for?
was 30 days, so I just finished it. And now
Mm.
I'm going to transition over into doing whole foods in about 2 weeks because I need to kind of give my body a rest for about a couple weeks. So things don't necessarily like go over like in terms of like it doesn't necessarily affect the data because I'm testing everything. I'm testing strength. I'm testing lab work, body composition, like my sleep, my recovery, so many other different things, so I can understand exactly what the differences are throughout that entire process.
So you did whole foods first or carnivore first?
I did whole foods. I haven't done carnivore. I'm gonna do carnivore in about 2 weeks.
And did you notice anything different on your whole foods diet than you
Yeah,
what you
yeah.
would
What I
your
was
normal
saying is
diet before?
I lost about 8 pounds, eating over
Mm.
2,000 calories. It's supposedly my body fat level didn't really drop, but I can definitely see it in my body. Like I even posted a video of like my before and after, and like it's pretty significant. So yeah, I feel better. I think like really overall less inflammation in my body, less. My people said that my face looks skinnier, all these different things like that. So, and again, consuming over 2,000 calories, like cutting out gluten, dairy, sugar, and mostly eating everything like fruits, vegetables, lean meats, some stuff here and there, some grains, but it was kind of limited on a lot of those the other things, and it wasn't really as hard as I thought it was going to be.
So what all foods are you going to have in your carnivore diet?
Yeah, so I think breakfast is most likely gonna look like probably like 5 to 6 eggs, probably with some ground beef. For lunch, most likely I'll have some form of like steak or some chicken option, and then probably cooked either in butter or something like that. And then for dinner, I'll have either like a fish, like a salmon, or maybe I'm gonna try to get a little bit creative with something like veal or some other kinds of meats like that. Because the thing with carnivore is like I need to make sure that the amount of protein and calories I consume during a carnivore diet is exactly the same as I was consuming in whole foods. The only difference is the carbohydrates and fats are going to be way different between the two. So in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that I consume enough fat. So I had to consume a lot of fatty meats compared to what I was consuming now. So that's the big difference on how it's going to look like. Honestly, I think carnivore is going to be a lot harder and definitely not going to be as fun and a little bit difficult navigating through all that.
Yeah, carnivore is definitely going to be harder, in my
Yeah.
opinion, to do.
Yeah, for sure,
So
man.
you said your goal is going to be about 2,000 calories.
Yeah, so the same as so they're calorie and protein control experiments. So I'm getting the same amount of calories that I did in Whole Foods, and the same amount of protein. Essentially, what I'm gonna get is like almost no carbs, and then just high fat, high protein, pretty much. So then they can match. So we can see, well, if I consume 2,000 calories worth of whole foods and I consume 2,000 calories worth of carnivore, what are the differences between the two?
I feel like it's going to be hard to keep your calories the same and keep your protein the same. I feel like you would eat more protein on carnivore.
Yeah, that's it. That's the challenge. So then in that case, then what needs to go up is my fat intake. So then in that case, I mean, like if you think about it, I'm gonna eat a lot less food in general. Because, I mean, if you think about like eggs, like 6 eggs cooked in like a slab of butter, let's say like 2 tablespoons, that's already adding closer to, I mean, like almost like 60 grams of fat, right? Like that alone is almost half of my fat intake for the day. And so that's most likely, I may even have to eat only a couple meals a day just to make sure that I'm not going over. So that's again what's unique about this. It's trying to make sure that I match both and see what happens when this is done this way. So we'll see what happens as far as that.
So when it comes to carnivore, what all fat sources can you eat? I know you mentioned butter, and then you can get fat from
So
the
I'm probably
meat.
gonna do
Is
just
that the only
honestly
fat
just
you have?
the fat from the meat, butter. There's no oils usually in carnivore. So honestly, like the fat from the eggs, they do some cheese and some dairy products, full fatted dairy products. So potentially I may do some full fat either yogurt or full fat like cheese. So those are gonna be the main things. There's not really that much. When I was doing a ketogenic diet a while back, I did you were able to do like things like oils and like peanut butter and almond butter. You were able to do things like avocados. This one does not have none of that. So literally, it's limited to like the fat from the animal, the fat from butter. Like it's just animal fats purely. So anything that comes from an animal. Butter comes from obviously like from a cow, so like that's one thing, and then like dairy and meat, pretty much. Those are the only, and then the eggs. Those are usually the only fat sources I'm gonna be consuming.
So what are the differences between a carnivore and keto? I know the food is different, but like what are the kind of different health outcomes that people are trying to achieve with the two different diets?
Well, they say
Because to me they're
basically
kind
that
of very similar to
vegetables.
me.
Yeah, they basically the carnivore community, they basically go against vegetables, and they say humans are not designed to be consuming vegetables, and they say vegetables are something that you are going to that they basically go against, like attack you. So vegetables are designed to not be consumed by a carnivore, a human body, right? So then that's why they do that. On a ketogenic diet, essentially, it's a diet that promotes a state of ketosis. So it gets your body to use fat as the main source of fuel. And it can be accomplished by simply pushing your carbohydrates low enough that it needs to change the way that it works to be able to use fat as the main source of fuel. In this case, the byproduct of fat is ketones. So you're able to accomplish that by still consuming things like net carbs that are low, which vegetables are part of that. So a ketogenic diet may look like some vegetables, avocados, some oils, a lot of high fat meats, but then you're still able to consume again like a variety of vegetables into the mix because your body's not necessarily absorbing a lot of that fiber, and that's why it's different. Carnivore is strict. that. Now, is there benefits between one or the other? There's not a whole lot of data on this, so it's really hard to tell, honestly.
Yeah, I've never thought of it that the carnivore thinking we're not supposed to have vegetables. I didn't realize that's why they like did carnivore. I thought people did it just because they saw like the health benefits from it. Is that just because like if you think of other animals that are carnivores, they don't necessarily eat
That's what they
vegetables? Is that kind of where
that's
they
their
get the
premise.
idea from?
That's their premise. They think that we have kind of like,
Yeah,
the same kind of digestive system as a lion, and lion are not like going in there and eating like cabbage and like lettuce. But
yeah,
that's been kind of refuted for so long, and then understanding like, we do have, we're not, we don't have the same anatomy. We don't necessarily, I mean, we have a brain, we have all these different things and systems, and we've also evolved over the years to be able to adapt to this type of situation. So that's the thing. But that's the main premise of a lot of the carnivore doctors and a lot of the carnivore communities. It's essentially that our digestive system is not designed supposedly to be consuming vegetables, even though there is a insane amount of research showing all the benefits that consumption of vegetables can do for improving cardiovascular health, for improving heart outcomes, for improving weight management, so many other different things.
yeah. That's weird how the word so much different than other animals. Because if you think about it, carnivores don't eat vegetables and omnivores don't eat meat. So it's like nobody eats both like we do. We do both. So I mean, I guess
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. So
part of
that's
being
that's
human. We're a
the
little
main.
more complex.
Yeah,
So
it's a
that's
little
pretty
bit more
interesting. I never
complex.
thought of it. Yeah, I've always just thought people did it because they seen the health benefits from. I didn't necessarily thought I didn't correlate it with we're carnivore. We should only eat meat, not
Yeah,
vegetables. But I guess I get the
100%.
idea.
Yeah, man. And I do have a hard stop in about a minute, so like if there's any like last minute questions, we'd love to kind of like go through those and make sure that I can answer those questions for people if they have any.
Yeah, we'll do some easy ones. What's one big nutrition myth that you like to debunk that you don't like?
Carbs are going to cause you to gain fat. I don't think that's not really
Yeah,
the key. It's essentially calories really what creates or people gain weight on more calories than what they need to, not just because it's just carbs.
I got you. Especially if you're an athlete, carbs are critical for athletes. Especially, I've been doing a lot of endurance training lately. I just ran a 100-mile ultra marathon
Oh, that's
like two
awesome.
months ago. So I ate a lot of carbs during that. Yeah, one more question to end it off. If you just had to give one piece of nutrition advice for people looking to get started on the fitness journey, what would that one thing be?
I would say the core five that I just talked about earlier. Just focus on the
Hmm.
basic things first before learn how to walk before you can run. When you're able to master those things, pay attention to what happened to your body. Pay attention to how you felt. And maybe that's all you need to get started initially before you get into like the nitty-gritty details of like what the perfect diet needs to look like. Get enough protein, get proper hydration, get enough fiber, get movement, and get enough food. And you're going to be golden obviously if you do all those things. And I think I lost him. All right, guys, I had to jump off. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you for Murphy for having me on, dude. And feel free to follow me on Instagram. Yeah, I was just saying, like, I was just saying goodbye to people because I do have to jump off. But I'll send you over the details on how people can find me, and then we can go from there.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm having
Okay,
some
man.
technical difficulties today. I apologize. Thank you for joining the podcast. Though I appreciate it. That was so bad.